Hello, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, we are going to talk about a developer who might have an idea of what's going on with current gaming. We'll see if he has actual insight or if he's pushing the same old narrative that they seem to like to push right now. This is on Game Developer. This is just a death cycle. No More Robots gets candid about the state of indie publishing. This is by Chris Kerr, and the subline is No More Robots founder Mike Rose explains how cynicism can ensure survival and offers indie devs some pitching advice. No More Robots, the UK-based indie publisher founded by Mike Rose, has found plenty of success over the years. Since forming in 2017, the company has brought a litany of titles to market, including Not Tonight, Yes, Your Grace, Hypnospace Outlaw, Let's Build a Zoo, Spirit Tea, and Descenders. The latter was the first project signed by the publisher and remains one of its most successful, attracting a feverishly loyal community after filling a gap in the extreme sports market when it launched in 2018. Now it's finally getting a sequel in Descenders Next, which aims to be the definitive downhill racer. For No More Robots and founder Rose, the reveal of Descenders Next represents something of a milestone moment. A chance to reflect on how much has changed since the publisher took its first steps 7 years ago. How has the business evolved since then? Well, Rose claims it's pretty much fucked. He's not entirely wrong. An implosion is coming, so batten down the hatches. It's a rather blunt appraisal, but with layoffs carving through the industry while both studios and publishers drop like flies, you might struggle to find anybody who'd argue. Rose explains there are some top-level reasons for the downturn: the pandemic sales boom resulting from lockdowns, the subsequent overinvestments and growth projections that never came good, the economic impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the rampant M&A wave that saw numerous studios and publishers swallowed by yawning conglomerates, the misguided beliefs that IPOs somehow represent the promised land. And those are all really good reasons. The pandemic and the fact that they took that money and instead of holding on to it, realizing that the world was in a crisis mode and that very likely what happens on the other end of that, especially with government printed money, is going to be a huge crash. They made the worst decision they possibly could. Trying to invest and grow too fast with that money was the worst thing they could possibly done. When the world is in turmoil, when everything is topsy-turvy and upside down, the last thing you do is try to push too much growth. You don't stall and do no growth whatsoever, but you don't overspend and you don't push too fast. You have to take a very measured approach to make sure that when the bottom drops out, you're holding on to something. Rose suggests it's a recipe that can only lead to one thing: a market implosion. But is there anything publishers can do to survive? Perhaps. The first thing you can do is not sell. Because if you sell to a larger corporation, the first thing they're going to do if it looks like they're going to lose money is shut you down. Just saying. For starters, he says it's time to admit that platform holders are no longer serving the interests of the smaller publishers. The problem with the new situation is that everything I did when No More Robots started, getting cheeky Xbox Game Pass deals and making it onto the Steam front page, isn't available anymore, he says. None of that is available anymore. When the Steam summer sale happens, it's absolutely AAA all the way down that have paid for those slots. It used to be the summer sale would make us a year of burn rate, and now it's a nice little spike. Yeah, that is depressing. I do not like how they've changed the summer sale. It used to be you could find something cool and new, and now it's all just deals on the big things that came out. You have to really purposely hunt to find the good indie games. Rose says indies have been sidelined on Steam after Microsoft, Sony, EA, and other major platforms chose to bring titles that might previously have been console exclusive to the PC. Steam is making more money, he says, but like 50% of that revenue is being generated by 1% of the games. Rose feels part of the solution is to seriously mitigate the risks you're taking on as a publisher, considering the long term without fixating on exponential growth. He says more companies need to accept that success in video games doesn't need to be synonymous with rapid expansion and chart-topping hits, but rather pragmatic survival. After 2022, when everything seemed fucked, we just stopped signing things, he explains. For a long time, we just stopped signing things because I was like, this is a death cycle. What we need to do is get better at making more money out of the back catalog we've got. And we have done that. In the last 2 years, we've gotten into an amazing cycle where, as cynical as it sounds, we've squeezed every penny out of the games we've got. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you know how to sell your back catalog and you can survive on it, that's the best thing to do. That gives you the money to work forward as you want without being worried if you're going to survive or not. So the games we had already are making more money than before because we had a big focus on that. But earlier this year, when everyone started to close down, I started to realize that if we keep doing that, eventually it's not going to go well. If we have no games, then what happens? Our new plan essentially is to sign a bunch of new stuff, but they're all very cheap and quick out of the door projects. Rose explains these projects were signed on the basis they'll take months, not years to develop. It also means shorter time frames between reveal and release, perhaps giving them a greater chance of taking root in the consumer consciousness. I've signed 5 new things in the last few years, and the plan is that they are all going to come out within the next year, and the hope is they'll all recoup very quickly, he adds. Then, if a couple of them really pop off, we'll say cool. It's an approach that might not deliver a sales explosion, but that's precisely the point. In signing lower risk projects, No More Robots doesn't need a swing for a home run each time it goes to bat. And business-wise, that's a very wise decision. I do grow concerned that the games will be... we're already seeing the amount of just kind of basic slop that is kind of pushed out onto Steam. And while I understand that is the most profitable platform for them, it will, of course, make it harder for people to find the games. If the games only take months to develop, are they really going to be good enough to really catch on? These are questions, you know? Are these games maybe further along and that's why they're taking months because they're just getting ready to wrap up? Or are they games that literally from beginning to end are going to take months to develop? Unfortunately, to stay alive, he's greenlighting games that aren't going to necessarily be pushing the envelope. But on the other hand, he's not wrong. Having a steady game sales could give him the money that they need to do something more down the road. Pitching to publishers. You'd better be cheap as fuck or as expensive as hell. Oh, God. If you're thinking this all sounds a little pessimistic, Rose is right there with you. Maybe, though, there's room for a little more cynicism if it can help save an industry that so often tries to run before it can walk. I quite often feel like I'm this old, whiny white man, he says. That's what I think people see me as, and I am. But with good fucking reason. Last year, a number of press sites reached out like, "Hi, Mike, we're doing our end-of-year roundup and seeing what publishers think is going to happen in 2024. We're hearing lots of positive things." I emailed back saying, "I don't know who you're hearing that from, but they're unbelievably wrong. Next year is going to be worse. There's nothing to say otherwise. And now, obviously, we're seeing how this year is going. People saying survive to 2025 make me sad because they think it's going to be better. I understand what the whole point of optimism is, and maybe I'm going to cut years off my life being a pessimist, but I also have a sustainable business because of my pessimism. The only reason 2025 would be better is because what he's talking about here, this implosion, actually happened, and what floats to the top afterwards is going to be worth playing, and businesses who were pessimistic, businesses who planned ahead and had a plan for getting through these times when they're not making something amazing. It's okay to make an okay game. If you are making a game that's just okay and just gets out the door and people play it and buy it, you're treating your business like a business. Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the most amazing thing ever, but, not every game will be. There's not a lot of room to have that many huge blockbuster games out there. There has to be mediocre or you don't understand what great is. Rose says there have been multiple points when No More Robots could have gone crazy. People were telling him to hire fucking loads of people after the publisher delivered some hits. But he was sure the good times wouldn't last and suggests he would have been a fucking idiot to believe No More Robots had somehow become invincible. Success isn't permanent. It's a drum he keeps banging, but it has become key to No More Robots' survival. Wow. This man was smart. He did the exact opposite of what everybody else did, which was to hire everybody under the sun, hire everybody and their brother and their sister and their cat's best friend's owner. Because what happens is a lot of these companies, they get this huge influx of money and they think, oh my God, we need to do something with this money. So they hire a bunch of people and they have a tendency to be very nepotistic about it because, if your trusted advisor is coming in and saying, hey, hire my brother, he's really good at X. I mean, maybe he's good at X, maybe he's not, but you don't really need someone to do X. But if you have the money and this guy really needs the job, so why not give him the job? You end up with bloat. There's a lot of bloat in the games industry right now. A whole lot. I know there's a lot of people. I know people have problems with the way Twitter runs now, but Elon cut a lot of bloat out of that business. There were way too many employees that didn't need to be there. And while it's hardly perfect now, it still runs. It still operates. There's plenty of things that can be done to fix it. And there might even be some rehiring of other employees down the road. But by cutting all of that weight from his books, he made things so much easier. He made it balance better. Just because you get a whole bunch of money doesn't mean it's smart to go on this huge hiring spree. Where does this leave developers? Rose says there are currently 2 types of games you can pitch publishers. Either cheap as fuck or expensive as hell. Anything in the middle is getting knocked back. There are publishers who will take low-risk, cheap games like ourselves, he continues. But there are publishers, companies like Devolver, for example. I don't know what numbers they're looking for, but it's going to be ridiculous numbers. If they'd sign a middling game for $400,000 or something, it looks weak. It looks like they're signing a small game, but $400,000 is too much for me. Rose says he still needs to connect with the pitch on a personal level, but explains it's vital that developers can understand and effectively communicate their needs. Sometimes they're asking for too little money. They'll say it'll take X amount of time, but it's only going to cost this because we'll live cheap, he says. He feels another myth that traps developers is the notion that more time in development equals more sales. It's not true. It's just not true. And if anything, now you're seeing, especially on the visual side, that players give less and less of a fuck whether a game is gorgeous or not, he adds. At this point, I feel like after you've been making a game for a year, the stuff you're adding at that point is not coming back on you. That's hard because there'll be certain types of games then that just can't be made. But unfortunately, right now, that's the way it is. Well, I gotta say, Mike Rose pretty much has it on the nose. I mean, avoiding the other issues that, of course, are part of it. Games developers currently developing games that people aren't really interested in and so forth. On the purely business side, he's got it down. He's right. If you're going to make a sustainable business, you need to have something that will come out and keep people entertained. It doesn't always have to be the most amazing thing ever. I would like it. I would prefer it if the only games that got released were the most amazing, most innovative game ever. But let's face it, I'm also happy to play some kind of ridiculously cheap puzzle game that will keep me entertained for 5 hours. Something I'm positive didn't take the developers more than a year at the most to make. So there is room for these kinds of games. I do worry a bit because I prefer to see them pushing the lines. I would like to see some more game evolution. But I have to be realistic too. Even as a gamer, I have to be on the realistic side of things and understand that they can't do that all the time. It's just not possible. I don't believe I've played any of the games they've published. I'd be curious if you guys could tell me if you have. Looks like on Steam they have 28 games, Spirit Tea, Slayer X, Terminal, Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer, Soccer Story, Fashion Police Squad, Tombstar, Not Tonight 2, Let's Build a Zoo, Family Man Prologue, Yes Your Grace, Nowhere Prophet, Descenders, Hypnospace Outlaws, and Not Tonight. Definitely some interesting ideas in there. Kind of a little weird on some of them, won't lie. But have you played any of those games? I will include a link in the description if you want to take a look at them. I certainly haven't, and actually none of them look like anything I want to play, so that's a kind of whatever thing. And what do you think about his judgment? I mean, leaving out, obviously, the agenda stuff. Do you think he's right? Do you think it was the whole expanding too hard, too fast, not being mindful about how much they're spending in their budgets, all that fun stuff? I mean, I do think that plays a heavy part in what we're seeing now, especially with the layoffs and the fact that the games, I mean, first they're developing games that nobody wants to play, and second, they're spending too much on the games that nobody wants to play. as opposed to developing smaller games that people might actually play. And I personally am really tired of this really long development cycle shit. Yes, I get that some things, if you are doing a really ambitious game, you are going to spend a lot of time building, and that's fine. But not every game should be that. Not every game is that. I get the feeling we're going to see more and more games that release after taking that long and really shouldn't have. Dragon Age Veilguard comes to mind. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.